Okay, so now we're going to start putting these pieces together. And what I have done is cut out all those skins, and I've cut out formers, and I cut right on the line. And you can see those two little holes I put in for my tweezers. Those work great to manipulate these formers, but they've been sanded and carefully fitted off camera as best I can. And you can see that they should fit just like that without any kind of force or anything. Shouldn't be any gaps, nothing. So it took a long time to get them that way, probably an hour of fiddling. But once you've got them, then you can commit them to glue. And you just put a little glue all the way around where they're going to be touching. And you slide that one over. And again, it took a lot of fitting, but now you got something that you put on there, and you got a nice flush former right up against that paper. And it's going to look that way on both sides, because remember, these are going to be butt joints, which turns out I don't like. They're pretty hard to make look good. I kind of lucked out, but in the back part, got to make sure that's all nice and glued, because that top part right there on the back, I kind of squeeze it together and I roll my fingers up either side to grab it, so that those pieces, see those two, just come right together like they're almost made to. Bam! And once that dries, there's just a little seam there. We're going to put a cockpit combing on there, which will hide some of that, but that fits. I mean, it's unbelievable how close that fits, and that's just from the designer, and then careful cutting and tiny bit of sanding. But you get to the point where, I think I said in the last video, at least on these Merrick designs, if you cut on the line and are careful, you barely have to sand at all. The skins fit really well. Anyway, so that looks really sweet. Flush and stuck on there nice. Looks good. Not too shabby. Just making sure it's all good. And you do that with all of these. So here's another skin that's been put together like I showed in the last video. There's that piece. You line up that vertical piece on the bottom seam. That's a good way to look at it. So now, again, I know this works, so they're already fitted in there a million times. But now you stick in your glue. You grab your piece. That little circle that's outlined in there, I think those are supposed to be cut out for the same reason. It gives you a place to grab, but I find it's easier just to grab it with a couple little pieces like that with the forceps, because that means sometimes you can actually twist and you can get them to fit just right. But just get it started, then you very carefully poke it down. If you go too far, you have to go from the other side and kind of push it out, because what you want on these is flat. And then that line is lining up with the bottom seam, so we know that we're vertical. Here I'm kind of making sure it's flat, looks good. I sanded it back and forth, which I didn't show. And I'm putting on the last one in the back. There she goes. Same procedure. I mean, this is very repetitive, but it might help somebody. You make sure you put it in the right side up. I almost put it upside down. But you go ahead and slide that in place, and you kind of squeeze once you get it in, you kind of squeeze. I'm squeezing the side of the paper a little bit, and that kind of opens it up counterintuitively, and then you push a little bit and get your former in there. Again, this is the reason I like balsa. 1/32 balsa works great for this. Now, ideally, these formers are the same size, and they come together and are beautiful. In practice, they're not perfect, mostly operator error, but there you get an idea of what the fuselage will look like, and it looks pretty dang nice. That sword ends up not lining up well on the one side, but we'll fix that later with the help of the repaint designer. But that's the basic fuselage, at least the back half. So here's an example of the camera. I did a horrible job on the camera on part of this video, like this part. But I'm just showing you that you do kind of sand, and there I'm making sure that's lined up. But you sand it a little bit, and when you sand it enough and you put those pieces together, you can almost make the seams disappear, almost. Now, this is the next part towards the front, and you can see there's a former in there. I put a little piece in there to hold that skin together, and that piece is dark. That's because that's where the engine mount's going to go, so you want to have it dark behind it. Now, this has these lovely tabs, which I like. I don't know why the rest of the body doesn't have tabs, because you'll see when you put these together, it makes a much better seam, at least in my opinion. Maybe the butt joints just take more skill. But now this part you can see is where the engine mount is going to go as well, so that former goes right up front, just like that. No surprises. Again, I fit it, and I'm amazed how well it fits. I mean, it comes right around to that top, and you stick it down the bottom. I draw a little pencil line around where the bulkhead's going to go, so I have a kind of a guide. But unbelievable when I'm holding that thing together, how everything fits just so. You nudge it around, make sure, but once it's all lined up, dang if it doesn't come together just beautifully. Really, really nice. So that goes on there, and that's another butt joint. But again, to make it look good, you got to do lots of sanding. I colored that black because there's a hole. I also colored around the edges black. Again, try to hide some of the wood and everything that comes around. But again, this piece didn't fit that well, so I had to sand it back and forth. And by the time I got it together like that, again, I'm sorry for the poor video, the positioning of the camera. So I tried to cut a lot of the extraneous stuff out. But you can see it's coming in. There's a big gap there. I don't know what to do with that. Still don't know what to do with that. Could not get it better. But I got the other parts pretty dang nice, I think. Put some glue on there. Again, not too much. I tend to take my finger and then slide it around a little bit too to make it kind of lessen the glue a bit. And then you just line this thing up. Again, I use the seams to line it up. You use any kind of panel line. You use, whatever to try to make it line up. And ideally, everything lines up perfectly. And that hardly ever happens, although on this model, pretty dang close. And you can see that with a lot of work and a lot of fiddling around, you can get this to look pretty good. And I'm pushing on it, and when I push, sometimes I can make the seam disappear more. And so this is just taking various implements and trying to make sure they're up against things. Now that part down there I don't like. This part, I'm pinching this just to make sure. That part, see how bad that part is? It's glued, but I couldn't get that any better. That's terrible on the sword. But when I turn it around, this side's really nice. Now that back part, like I said, the designer of the remake of the artwork, Matt77, he sent me a fix for that. Bless him, and it worked really well. I'll show you the pictures later. So here I'm putting in the last former that goes in the very tippy front, and the same procedure. Wrap it around, and what you see is this is the last one that's no, this is actually not a butt joint. This is one that goes on those tabs. But see how when you put them together and you just wipe off the glue, it fits like a plastic model. The glue dries clear, of course, but look at how much better that seam is compared to all the others. It's almost gone. This is the engine mount, so I'm putting some glue on the cross members and on the back, and that's just going to get put in that front nose part. Just slide it in like so, and it came out nice and straight. It was nice. It was actually level. I checked it. It comes out really good. Make sure it's solid. It dries pretty quick. And then I couldn't help it. I grabbed the engine and sort of stuck it in there to see how it looks. Now this isn't done by any means, but at least you can see kind of what it's going to look like. Again, in this case, actually the engine sits a little high, but man, let's look. If you see something like that, you get really chuffed. Oh, there's my peanut gallery. My wife and son, they just love watching me and make fun. This is the very front piece, wrapped around this A portion, and it's glued in nice and tight in there because that's where your prop's going to go and all the rest. But this one again just fits like a champ right over the previous tabs. You just line it up on the top cowling, add a little glue, and pop it on there, and dang if it doesn't go nice. Once this stuff dries, by the way, you can take like the back end of a teaspoon or something, and you can roll it along those seams and press it, and that kind of makes the seams also disappear a bit. And it doesn't make them disappear completely, but it doesn't look bad. I'm tweezing these to make sure they're glued nice, but look, there's the body. Dang, it looks pretty nice. Now, this last piece is a shroud that goes over the front, and I think it's too small. In reality, the pictures I've seen of the Pfalz, that has to go further back, but to make that fit, I took right where the glue is going on, I took a little bit of see that little curve on the bottom? Just tiny curve, just a little bit. It was just flat before. That little curve helped make it fit kind of snug down on the nose because it's curved. But I glued that part on first, and then once that was glued on and dried, then I played with the edges. But again, it's amazing how well it fits. It truly is. People complain about fit of things. I took super glue and I glued that edge on carefully, and then I glued the other edge on. And now the front end is essentially done except for a spinner and a prop and a couple of little accoutrements. So now I put the engine in again just because I can, and looks pretty cool. I did end up cutting the engine down a little bit. It was a little high, a little tall. And so I took probably 32nd of an inch off of the bottom of it or so, and that made it fit a little better. But you can see how the engine's going to look, and it really dresses at the front end. Makes it look wonderful. And Matt 77's renderings, just the matte color of it, everything looks snazzy. So here's the engine. I've taken the bottom off. You can see I've trimmed a bunch off, putting a bunch of glue on it, and going to just set it inside. And all you got to do is make sure that it's straight. You take it, you put it in, you make sure it's straight, going head on, down, every which way you can. Make sure it's not leaning one way or the other. And dang, you have a whole fuselage done. Sweet.